So yesterday I ended up with this fucking thing, and I want it out of my possession ASAFP, the F standing for feasibly. So I figured that I make this a mini episode whilst I works on episode 9.
This is Shark Tale. Fintastic fun. Shark Tale is a movie that came out in 2004, which was Dreamworks' reaction to Finding Nemo. Unlike Finding Nemo, however, it has aged poorly, which is probably why nobody honestly remembers it, and why Dreamworks would love it if it could keep it that way.
Shark Tale is like Finding Nemo if it was filmed in someone's garage. Despite the fact that it's under the sea, the most beautiful and colourful place on the planet, it looks like a dingy, shitty back alley in fucking Glasgow or somewhere. Now I understand that the whole point of this is to try and make it feel a bit more urban, you know, because it's a very urban story, but if you're going to make something urban, don't set it in the most colourful and beautiful place on the planet, you fucking idiots.
So the movie is dripping in 90s backwash as rap, this weird street cred thing that was going on at the time, and other things that made the early 2000s the cultural wasteland that it is, took centre stage. It makes the movie very hollow and soulless when you look back at it today. And where the characters are concerned, it's even more so. The main character is this Will Smith fish named Oscar, and apart from the fact that he looks as ugly as fuck, which is what happens when you try to make your main character, who is a fish, look like a human male, the one who voiced him, his face is only the beginning of how ugly he actually is. The premise is that Will Smith fish washes whales in a car wash, and he only does this so that Car Wash by Rolls Royce, which was butchered by Christina Aguilera for the purpose of this film, could be the theme song, and it's one of many things that makes this thing timeless. Anyway, Will Smith Fish's dream is to become famous, and not only does he believe this, but the movie itself says that fame is just something that everyone should dream towards, and it's something that is a legitimate goal, and that everyone really is entitled to it, which to me is completely missing the point. And I know that this will sound naive among other things, considering there are many examples that oppose this, but fame is something that should be earned through the demonstration of a unique talent or through providing a well-needed service to mankind itself. Again, I am fully aware that this isn't how it works in practice, but this is what movies like this are for. It's an opportunity to remind us of this, especially when he earns his fame illegitimately. But sadly, the movie is on Oscar's side, and more or less it allows him to keep his fame after admitting that he has not earned it and has actually cheated his way to the top, with no strings attached whatsoever. Putting this aside, Oscar himself is an ungrateful dick sponge who more or less uses everyone around him. He's the washed up loser who still has a lot of friends and people around him who idolise him. The worst one of all is Angie the purple fish, who even goes as far as to give him an heirloom to pay off his debt that he owes to the mafia. And what does he do? He bets it on a race and fucking loses it, losing the heirloom and then still getting himself kidnapped by the mob, and she still likes him. Personally, I think she's equally as to blame, because it's the equivalent of putting a piece of ham in front of a dog, then walking away, and then getting mad at the dog for eating the ham. Obviously it's going to do that because it's a fucking idiot, and there comes a time when you've got to keep the ham away from it and say, no, you clearly are not in a position to be making decisions for yourself because you are brain dead, you stupid Will Smith fish fuck. The entire world of Shark Tale makes no sense, neither do the jokes. We see a taxi fish that clearly can't carry any passengers. Now, I could buy it if it was a Mr. Ray type fish, you know, like the stingray from Finding Nemo. You know, a huge fish that carries smaller fish around on his back. But what kind of creature is going to be able to travel inside this taxi fish? Maybe Plankton from SpongeBob could, if he wormed his way inside his arsehole? On top of this, there are also race jokes and pop cultural references in a world where human culture does not exist and no two fish look alike in this entire movie. Okay, most fish do not look alike. Like, Will Smith makes a joke about how white fish can't do it, but he has more white on him than the fish who's apparently a white fish. I don't understand. Anyway, this movie is overall bad for children. Its morals are fucked up. The entire thing is full of references to classic children's movies like The Gladiator and The Godfather. And the thing is so dated that unearthing it now is like digging up a 13-year-old turd and wondering why it smells worse than when you buried it 13 years before after seeing it drop out of Dreamworks' arse. Anyway, with that cheery thought, let's move on to some good old-fashioned Fintastic fun with this game. Okay, that name is still fucking stupid. Now, this isn't the official Shark Tale game, but it's an activity game for younger children, I guess. I'm not sure how much this was originally, but I've seen a rough estimate guessing that it was around £20 on original release, which is an amazing amount of money, but as I said, it was on one website and was an estimate, so I'm taking that with a pinch of salt. So I put this game in and install it and go to click the icon when we're off to a good start. So the game starts up and it gives you an FMV render of the Dreamworks logo, which would have been impressive if this was the late 90s and not 2004, but whatevs. Oh, and the Activision logo. Okay, now I know that this game has no excuse to be a piece of shit. This came out the same year as Thug 2 by the same publisher, so it has no right to say that they didn't have any money to make this good. If indie games have taught us anything, it's that you can make impressive shit on the budget of a half-eaten cracker and a broken pencil, so budget isn't an excuse nowadays. So the game opens up and...
I'm the best dancer in the whole ocean.
Okay, thanks for establishing that, whoever the fuck you are. Well, okay, I know who the fuck he is, but imagine having no idea what the fuck Shark Tale was and encountering this as the first thing you see on the screen. You'd be about as confused as I am now.
Wanna see my moves?
No, I wanna go home.
Just click the correct symbol on the right as you see the same symbol pass through the target box on the circle. The better your timing, the better I'll dance. Get a great score and unlock special goodies.
Okay, so this is basically like one of those shitty dance mat games. Apparently this is more or less the main goal of this game, getting Oscar more music to dance to. I have to ask though, is he really the best dancer in the ocean if he needs me to help him? Like, I'd like to point out that I am not controlling the music. I'm not even controlling him. Nothing changes if I fuck up. So they're just making you press buttons to waste your time. Well, that's nice. There's 5 songs overall, and the first one is the shitty car wash cover that was made for this movie.
Oh yeah! Cut it up!
I have to point out that as boring, tedious, shitty and fucking awful this game is, it's competent I guess, at least in the early stages, but there's no fucking appeal at all. You have no effect on what's going on, and even if I did, I don't care. This song sucks balls, the dancing sucks arse, and all that you are left with at the end is staring at this little box, wondering where your life went wrong, where you ended up doing this. There's no challenge, since you can see it all coming from a mile away. The only challenge my dumbass faced was figuring out that the moon symbol was actually usable on level 1. Though in all honesty, I thought that the moon symbol was actually like a gap. Like it was a trick so that if you hit any of the buttons, you get penalised and you were supposed to miss it. But apparently no, there is a moon icon, which I did notice in the later levels, but didn't notice in the first one. It doesn't fucking matter anyway, since even though I missed 20% of the symbols, I still get a Patrick Star's arsehole. And so I can move on.
Stop judging me!
We then get taken to the main screen. Here there are 6 awful minigames and some extras. Each video game has a different character in charge of it, and each one is equally as insultingly easy, so you might as well throw a fucking rock when deciding which one to pick. So I picked the purple fish, the one who parted with her heirloom so that Oscar could live to fuck up another day, so let's see what pressing issue she has for me.
The wheel wash office is such a big mess. Nothing is where it's supposed to be. Can you help clean it up?
Excuse me, hi, purple people eater. Hi, yeah, what the fuck? I mean, this is like that episode of SpongeBob where he can fly and Mr. Crab tells him to clean out his garage. What am I, your intern? Go and fuck yourself, you fish face. So once you get over the shock of how fucking pointless this game is, it's a basic drag and drop on par with that shitty Girl Zone game I played last year and never got around to uploading the footage of. So you pick up a shitty item, you drag it across the screen and you drop it. Obviously they make this as easy as possible for you and they don't want people to actually have to use their brains, so there's a purple outline of whatever you need to drop and where you need to drop it. Also the game condescends to you every time you put something down in the right spot.
I know what pathetic excuse people are going to throw at me now. Oh, it's just a game for children, don't be so harsh on it. No! Fuck off!
The fact that this is a game for young children means that it should be stimulating and teach them new skills, or at the very least should be fun, and this isn't any of those things. It honestly blows my mind when people say that kids are better off playing this inoffensive, unchallenging, unstimulating shit than something that's perhaps a little older than they're ready for, but has some interesting puzzles and challenging combat, like Ratchet and Clank, or even go as far as a moral dilemma from a Final Fantasy game or some shit. Instead, they're being told to pick up objects and drop them back down again, like they're fucking idiotic machines. Even if a child enjoyed this back in the day, it was the stimulating colours, not the gameplay. There is nothing that can be learned from this, nothing that can be achieved, as it just gets messed up again later anyway. It's a waste of fucking time, and granted it's only 58 seconds, but this is painfully insulting, and even if it only took 4 seconds to do, that's 4 seconds of gaming that could have been spent on something like Little Big Planet or Portal instead. I know that those games weren't out at this point, but there were much better games for children than this shit. Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, The Sims, Crash Bandicoot, Rayman 2, Crash, Spyro, anything other than this. And if you might think that those were the tiniest bit too old for, say, a 4-year-old, maybe you should face the prospect that your 4-year-old isn't going to be a fucking idiot forever, and maybe you should work on giving them the skills they'll need to become a useful member of society someday, instead of the useless reject piece of shit that this main character is in this fucking game. I would apologise for getting off topic, but considering that the topic was picking shit up off of the floor and hanging it again, I think that anyone who's offended by that should bugger themselves in the snatch. Though I have a few queries that remained unanswered about this game. 1. What the fuck happened to this room? Is Angie in some money trouble herself? It would explain why someone trashed the place, looking for debt money perhaps. Or maybe she has anger issues and is taking it out on her workspace. Again, either is more than possible. 2. Is she trashing the place so that I have to come in and pick it up over and over again? Why? Unless she's staring at my ass whilst I bend down to pick things up.
Hello, police?
Why and how the fuck did this speaker thing get ripped off of the wall? Did she do that? If so, I am actually quite impressed. There's 5 levels of this shit. Each time the floor gets more cluttered, but amazingly the game doesn't get any harder or less boring.
Good one. I think you need your eyes checked.
And I think that you need your eyes crushed by my thumbs and your fucking skull torn apart, you useless bitch!
Okay, so on to the next game.
Hey, let's get some good eat.
Good eats. Good eats. Good eat!
So in this game we help Jack Blackshark con his friends and family into eating vegetables instead of meat, meaning that as a carnivore he is effectively poisoning his friends and family by feeding them the wrong food. The fact that tenacious Dunkleosteus has taken up the vegetarian cause, despite the fact that sharks can't suddenly decide to cut meat out of their diets as they would surely die, is a noble if not retarded cause, but that's no reason to inflict it on his family without their consent. So, I hope you're taking notes, kids. First off, mess up your room as much as you fucking well want, so that some sucker will have to come in and clean it all up. And also, if you don't like what your family eat, rather than try and convince them through words or through evidence or through, you know, some form of convincing and using your charisma, you are better off conning them by disguising something that they wouldn't ever touch as something that they love. Remember that your cause is worth a lot more than their lives, so don't worry about them developing stomach ulcers and going belly up. Serves them right for not believing in your cause willingly. Also, there is a slight flaw in this plan. Won't they realise that something's off about the squid when it tastes like avocado? Also, where the fuck did you even get an avocado? You're in the middle of the fucking ocean! Fuck it, I'm bringing logic into this place where it doesn't belong. I do have to admit, this minigame doesn't seem like the worst premise. You're having to use your judgment to decide which vegetable resembles which body part of the squid. But in all honesty, it's not all that difficult. Well, okay, it is difficult at times, but mostly for the wrong reasons. Since you're looking at the finished shape, and there's a number of vegetables that could be each of those body parts, but sadly only one of them will do. It's disappointing because I think there could have potentially have been a creative element to this minigame. But sadly there isn't room for creativity here, and in all honesty I find making the shapes a little confusing, but you have unlimited guesses so there's no pressure to get it right immediately at all. One thing that I found funny was that Jack Blacktip is actually repulsed by certain combinations. So he really is a fucking hypocrite, serving shit up that he wouldn't even eat himself, isn't he? 5 levels of this game and they're all the fucking same. This wasn't the worst of the mini-games, but it's not what I'd call good either. The third game is Up in the Air, and it's centred around Luca, an octopus that works for the mob, and his mini-game is helping him cheat at juggling. Right, because he clearly did that in the movie. Well, to be fair, he is only in the movie for a few minutes, and he has one joke about big butts. That's pretty much all he has in the entire movie. So it's not like they've got a lot to go off of. Still though, that isn't a very good excuse. I mean, why even make a mini-game around him? Why not do it for someone else, like that crazy clam guy with the puppies? Maybe even Robert De Niro Shark, who isn't on the front cover actually, but he isn't in this game. Probably because he's dead from eating Jack Blacknose's food. That octopus at the centre of the screen. What is that? It's fucking hilariously stupid. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had high hopes after a bit because I saw how confusing it was, the big clusterfuck of balls jumping in the air, and I knew that he was gonna drop one and that I'd have to catch it. I honestly couldn't keep track what was going on, and I honestly thought, wow, this might actually be challenging. You would have to have keen reflexes and a sharp eye to find all the dropped items in that chaos. This is gonna be...
Oh, it just fucking hovers right in front of your face.
This is surprisingly the third most challenging game in spite of everything I've said. It's next to the dancing game and the Seahorse game. It's at least possible to fail this if your head is in the process of caving in. And at least some of the last levels start to resemble something with difficulty, but it doesn't actually quite get there, and in the end, it mostly just feels like a colossal waste of time. Fuck this game, fuck Will Smith Fish for standing there, judging me.
This whole fucking time.
The next one is Shock with Jamaican stereotype jellyfish. It's a game about picking different threads so that you can send an electric shockwave down it and electrocute the other jellyfish on the other side with it. Something that's established in the movie as being impossible. Jellyfish cannot electrocute other jellyfish, making this whole game
Actually, no, it was already fucking pointless.
This game is slightly less difficult than the juggling game. Maybe if it's at a first person angle it would be harder, but you can quite easily tell which one of these threads you need to pull, since they are all different colours, so your brain automatically just looks at the one that the enemy stood next to, and then just basically pulls the corresponding colour. Making them all the same colour would at least have gotten rid of this problem, and it would have also made tangling them up worthwhile. But as it stands, it's completely fucking pointless to tangle them up because you only need to look at the beginning and the end of each thread to know which one to pull. I suppose the biggest challenge of this shit is more or less unintentional. You see, the jellyfish are so big that they technically stood next to 2 or sometimes even 3 of the nodes at once, instead of just the one that they should have been stood off, and several times I ended up hitting the one below them, forgetting that they had to electrocute the head part of the jellyfish. Maybe making them smaller would have avoided the confusion. Maybe I'm just a fucking idiot. Who knows? Who cares? This is the only one that doesn't change with difficulty, again making it entirely pointless. And then there's arguably the best game of the bunch, as it's a game about making seahorses jump over various obstacles as they run from one side of the track to the other. If you hit an obstacle, you trip up and get a momentary delay, resulting in you losing precious seconds. This is the closest this thing comes to resembling a game to me, and though the angle does at first sort of disorient you, to the point that I actually fucked up a few times at the start, it's mainly because I wasn't sure when was the best time to jump and how far the seahorses could jump. But you're best doing it last minute rather than too early. It jumps upward more than it does forward. Remember that. Actually don't, you're better off remembering something useful, like how to program a VCR. Anyway, there are a number of little power-ups to collect as you go along and obstacles to jump over. It requires reflexes of sorts in order to complete, and though it's not the most challenging game, I do think this is a little better than Children than, say, picking shit up off of the floor the game. Personally, I think this is the closest this thing comes to being a game, and it's here that the graphics and environments sort of shine. I know it looks kind of shitty by today's standards, or even AAA releases at the time, but you can tell that quite a bit of effort was put into the visuals, possibly more than the actual game itself, and I personally feel like it pays off. Everything is colourful, things look like they're supposed to, and this only looks like a slight downgrade from what most video companies were doing at the time. They even have things in the background which you sadly won't notice since you're constantly looking at the seahorse's feet and the obstacles just ahead of them. It wasn't until I actually watched the video played back to me that I noticed.
Oh my golly gee whiz jellicers. What a dumb joke.
The game gradually increases in difficulty as it goes along, and it's actually got a form of a difficulty curve. I wouldn't call this a legitimately good game, but in relation to everything else on this disc, it gets a pass. Also,
Stop staring at me!
okay! Sorry. After playing each of these shitty fucking games enough times, you unlock a new song for Will Smith Fish to dance to. There's Don't Worry by Bob Marley, butchered by 3 little twats for the purpose of this movie. This fucking sound. Wipeout, and finally Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. Okay, so the music library is ungodly. But what about the gameplay itself? Well, it's the same old shit. It's just click the corresponding symbol as it reaches the box at the centre of the base of the circle. It's boring and stupid, and it's the worst. Each of these boring, shitty minigames has to be played 5 times in order to unlock one of these excruciating dance sequences, and once you've done all 6 minigames 5 times, playing a grand total of 30 minigames, then you unlock the rewards. Well, who knows? this might actually be good, right? I mean, it could give you some clips from the movie, some behind the scenes stuff, maybe even Okay, so we have this birthmark of a shark, some blackberries, some guacamole, some Play-Doh fucking fish things, a cake, a child's drawing of Jack Black shark being seduced by Will Smith fish, a shitty drawing of Angie, a shitty drawing of Will Fish Smith, a shitty drawing of Jack Black shark, and a shitty drawing of Jamaican stereotype number 1. Well, it looks like this game finally got a fuck you, but I might want to point out that this game's files actually have all of the music in this game, which I can now steal from those files and keep them for myself for free. Now who's the pillock? So in conclusion, I'd say that this game is a steaming pile of dog shit and a product of its time. It offers nothing, it came from nothing, and hopefully it will return to nothing. Fuck this game.